Elderly driver came into the parking lot and came in at a high rate of speed. And we've been on this call. Anyone who's been in EMS, the elderly driver that hit the gas instead of the brake, that's exactly what happened. So she came in off of the highway, came in high rate of speed, knew it was coming in a high rate of speed, wanted to jam on the brake pedal, and she hit the gas. I didn't see anything. I'm in the gazebo. Here, all I can do is hear. And what I hear is basically tires screeching, like what you would hear right before a bad accident's about to happen, an engine revving, and then the biggest crash I've ever heard in my life. And so I got knocked back. When I came to, I looked around, and all I see is a car that plowed through where we're at, and I can't find my son. And I eventually find him, and he's lying face down, not moving, partially under the car. So in that moment, I'm thinking, that's it. I'm about to pick up my dead child.
This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent, but this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Hey everybody, welcome to A Silent War Within. My name is Michaela. This is our lovely host, Kevin. He's asked me to pop it off today, so we're going to get started. We have a wonderful, lovely guest I'm so excited about today. It is Egan De Los Cobos. Did I say that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, perfect. Okay. And he's going to be sharing with us his journey and holistic healing. So, Egan, just tell us how your story begins. How did you get here? What's going on in your life right now?
Do you want to get in the whole story?
Yeah.
Do your
I
whole
want the whole
background.
story. I want
Yeah.
the everything you've done public service wise and everything from start to finish. I love
Okay.
a good story.
Okay, if I start going on a tangent, then you just stop me and we'll get to it or
Hey,
something.
we love tangents too, so you're good.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so like I said, my name's Egan De Los Cobos. I've been a firefighter-paramedic. I've been in the fire service for 26 years. I started at 18 years old. I was just took it. Actually, didn't. I was never one of those people who thought they were going to be in public safety. My dad was a reserve police officer, so I was exposed at a young age to some of it. But I didn't think that was for me. So I got through high school, got my first semester of college, and when I hate this, I can't do this. I want to go. I want to be outside. I want to do something else. I was big into surfing, and the college I went to was just a city college, a community college, but it was right next to the beach. So I was just like, I got to get out there, and whatever I do, I can't be inside. So I went home and asked my mom. I'm like, hey, this isn't working for me. So what can I do? Would you have any ideas? And she's like, well, your uncle's a firefighter. He seems like he loves his job. So maybe hit him up. So I called him up and he said kind of what we all hear in this line of work to some degree. Best job in the world. You won't feel like you worked a day in your life. And to get started, take an EMT class and then maybe go fire academy if you want to go that route. I'm like, okay. So I left that college, went to another community college that had a fire academy, EMT and all that, and took my EMT class. And lo and behold, I got the highest grade that I've ever gotten in my life in the class. So I'm like, well, there's something to it. I was never a bad student, but I was never a great student either. And for some reason, this clicked with me. And that's when I realized that it's something I'm interested in. And it actually kind of matters, I think. So maybe I paid attention more and I loved it. So I pursued the EMT stuff, went on to the fire academy, and I got hired as a paid call firefighter at 18 years old. So I don't know, 8 months out of high school, and I was already working as a firefighter as a paid call, and I loved it. So I went on to become paramedic school about a couple years into my journey, and then got hired on a private ambulance and concurrently worked in the fire service too. But I worked for a private ambulance company for 6 years, 5 years as a paramedic, and then went on to get hired full time in my current agency in Santa Barbara County as a firefighter paramedic back in 2007. And so that's kind of my professional journey. When it comes to health, I've always been trying to be the person who interested in health. That's always something that's been a goal of mine, just being active. And I've always been kind of just wanting to do those things, to eat right, exercise, blah, 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 like nothing crazy. I've always been kind of interested in that. But then I was kind of forced to really buckle down throughout my journey. So that was always in the back. And then, so I went on. So early in my career, so 2007, I got hired. And then in 2013 is basically when my life changed forever. So in 2013, my son, he was 3 years old at the time. We were sitting in front of a coffee shop. And the way this coffee shop was set up was you kind of come into the parking lot and then there's a handicapped parking spot that's facing the patio that's kind of fenced in and there's a gazebo. And my son and I would sit in this gazebo almost every day off that I had. Ironically, this was like a vacation day that I took too. So the irony is pretty funny. So I should have been at work, but I was not, but we'll get into that. So, anyways, we're sitting in that gazebo and then the highway kind of parallels where this grocery store is. So there's a lot of highway speed kind of traffic. So on this day, an elderly driver came in into the parking lot and came in at a high rate of speed. And we've been on this call. Anyone who's been in EMS, the elderly driver that hit the gas instead of the brake, that's exactly what happened. So she came in on off of the highway, came in high rate of speed, knew was coming in on a high rate of speed, wanted to jam on the brake pedal, and she hit the gas. I didn't see anything. I'm in a gazebo, so all I can do is hear. And what I hear is basically tires screeching, like what you would hear right before a bad accident's about to happen, an engine revving, and then the biggest crash I've ever heard in my life. And so I got knocked back. When I came to, I looked around and all I see is a car that plowed through where we're at, and I can't find my son. So in that moment, there's actually somebody across the patio who ran over and started asking what I needed. I'm like, I can't find my son. And so he started helping me. I started moving tables, chairs, debris everywhere. And I eventually find him. And he's lying face down, not moving, partially under the car. So in that moment, I'm thinking, that's it. I'm about to pick up my dead child. As I pick him up, he instantly starts crying right away. So I pick him up and I hold him. The best cry I've ever heard. All of us in EMS love to hear kids crying, right? They're breathing, at least we can work from that. And as I'm holding him, I remember having two distinct feelings. The driver was just getting out of their car, and I had two distinct feelings. One was the worst anger I've ever had in my life to go over and punch an old lady in the face. And then the second was I'm in extreme pain and I think my legs are broken. So I fight the anger urge, and then I said, I got to get away from this car, hold my son, and I walk thinking my legs are going to give out because I thought they were broken, but they were not. So thank God I got away from the car, sat down, and then that's when the whole thing just played out like a movie. So I'm sitting there holding my son, realizing what had just happened, and EMS, law enforcement, fire, all people I work with and know start showing up. And it's the weirdest thing because I know what happened. I know the severity of it, but I can't communicate. And we've seen those people. I've seen those people throughout my entire career, and I never understood it till now. It's like everything's happening in slow motion. It's a movie. It's like it's not happening to you. It's the weirdest thing ever. People will come up to me and ask me, and I physically could not get words out. It was the weirdest feeling ever. And one of the captain who was on the call was it was a friend of mine, and he worked at the normal station that I work at too. So, and at first he thought I was there to help with the call. He knew I lived there. He thought that I was just there kind of helping out until he looked at my face. And he said I was about as white as a ghost, and that's not like me. And so he's like, he was involved. And so he gathered me up. They put me on the gurney. The EMT at the time wanted to put my son in a pediatric spine board. I said, the hell you are? I'm not letting him go. And so I held him all the way down to the trauma center for about 45 minutes till the ER doctor pulled him out of my arms. So at the hospital, we were treated and released within about 4 hours. So they did CT scans, they checked us all out, x-rays, you name it, and literally bumps, bruises, and scratches. That's physically all that happened. And At first, I remember on the way home, I'm like, man, like that's it. Like I felt like it drove through us, but maybe it just glanced us, and maybe I'm overthinking what actually happened. So I go back. Actually, my truck was still parked at that incident. My sister had drove up from like 3 hours away to come visit us at the hospital, and she took me back to my car. And sure as shit, it went right through us. Like there's no good logical reason that we're still alive. A miracle. So, and that's what I wrote it off as. So I went, so we just kind of went from there. I went, man, that was a close call. We've all seen those kinds of things working in 911, of those close incidents. Wow, those people are so lucky. It's a miracle they're alive. Man, it could have been way worse. That's exactly what I said. And I've always been a grateful person, never really tried to dwell on anything. And that's what I did. I just moved on. And that's it. And I tried to maintain a normal life, but I knew it was significant, but I just thought, well, physically you're fine. Let's just, move on with our life. And that's what I did, or tried to do. Within about 3 weeks after the accident, I started noticing physical symptoms. I noticed that I started having really bad foot pain. So I had my middle toes on both of my feet had swelled up the size of my big toes. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Maybe I had broke them in the accident, didn't realize it. I don't know. So I went to the doctor and got checked out. They did x-rays, and they said, no, there's nothing broken. And it's just kind of inflammation. They didn't give me any answers. I'm like, well, that's weird, but okay, we'll just move on. And then that was the start of the cascade of physical symptoms for the next several years that tied back to this, but I had no answers, and it just kept going and going. So I'm going to sum up the next 3 years in just a few minutes. So that started out with the foot pain, and then that led into really bad hip pain, so bad that I couldn't hold my son some days. I couldn't walk some days. I couldn't hold my child. That led into super bad back pain. Then, and I felt like my body was completely breaking down within just months after this accident. I literally felt like I was a 90-year-old man trapped in a 33-year-old's body. And again, I'd go to doctors. I would say, hey, like my back's hurting, like having really bad pain. They do x-rays. They're like, oh, you have arthritis, just osteoarthritis. And I'm like, what the shit? I'm 33 years old. Like maybe I'll have some, but not to this degree that I can't move. And then, so specialist after specialist, I go to orthopedist, and then I started developing skin issues of psoriasis. But again, at the time, it wasn't put together. So they just say, oh, it's just general inflammation of the skin, seborrheic dermatitis. So I started having psoriasis. And if you don't know what that is, it's like itchy, red, flaky skin. And mine was all in my entire scalp. It feels like somebody's walking around with a blowtorch wherever it is constantly. It never goes away. So my skin's breaking down, my joints are hurting, I can't pick up my kid. So I'm having all these physical symptoms. And again, doctor after doctor just giving me either steroid cream. I put it on, the psoriasis would clear up for a minute, go right back. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So not getting any answers. And all of them, I would say, hey, on October 2nd, 2013, which was the day before the accident, I was fine. Ever since my accident, my health has been decline. Is it related? All of them told me no. But I knew in my gut that there's something changed. Like I know who I feel, what I feel like, and this is not normal. So all these physical health symptoms were going on for the years after the accident. And then coincidentally, I'm starting to have mental health issues. Again, not knowing what it is, just looking back, because I didn't have any tools. Just like you guys have mentioned on previous podcasts that we do, we didn't have those tools. Nobody talked about it. So we were left in the dark. So I started having really bad like hypervigilance, anxiety, and I didn't have nightmares. I always say like that's a common thing with post-traumatic stress, and I did not. It's probably because I didn't sleep. So that was the big thing for me is I didn't sleep. So I would go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock, just lay in bed thinking about taking care of my son, my job, whatever else needs to be taken care of. And maybe I'd fall asleep by 1, 2 in the morning, wake up at 6 a.m., do it all over again. I thought that was normal because I've been doing that for the last roughly 15 years, but prior to that too. So, like I said, I started at 18 with a pager on my hip, getting up out of my bed and answering calls. So for nearly, over half my life, I've been doing this thing and thinking that's normal. Apparently, it's not. So I'm having all these symptoms, and then I'm noticing anger. getting really, really pissed off about really benign things. And so I just remember that's like deep visceral anger that would just develop over anything. And it would be so bad that you want to punch somebody in the face, hit a wall. And that was not like me. And anybody who knows me knows that that's not like me. So I knew that something was going on. But again, I would go to doctors. I would ask like if this is all related, and all of them would told me no. So it made me feel like I was freaking crazy. But I knew in my gut something had changed. I want to back up real quick. So I knew the significance of the accident and the potential impacts from my kid. I didn't think for 1 second that mental health would impact me, yeah, after that accident, but I knew my kid was small. I knew this could be traumatic for him, and because maybe he couldn't process it. So I took him to a therapist, called my insurance, called the therapist, made an appointment for him. This was about a month or so after the accident. And he evaluated my son, and he said, from what I can see, he's okay from his perspective. I don't think the kids are very resilient. He'll be okay. But he said, I'm worried about you. And I'm like, I'm fine. I see worse shit than this all the time. Like, or I'm grateful, like physically we're fine. So that's what I told him. He's like, I know that, but I want you to do something for me. He said, I want you to write a letter to your son as if he had died. And this was my first experience with a therapist. And I thought about that. Well, it hit me in the chest once. And he said this in a backhanded way as I'm going out the door to write this letter. As I'm going home, driving home with my son, and I was like, wait, why would I want to dwell on the fact that my son died when he didn't? I said, this is bullshit. I'll never go back to that therapist. And I never did. And that's was my experience, which was not a great one, right, with therapy. And so then obviously the cascading events of everything too. So I'm going through years and years of physical health symptoms, mental health issues, knowing something's going on in my body, but nobody's giving me any answers at all. And then what happened one day was everything kind of came to a head. So it was my girlfriend at the time. We were making dinner. We had this condo, and it was a real tight little kitchen. We had this kind of high table, like a bar stools, and my son was sitting on a bar stool, and he fell off of it. And kids fall. We have nieces, nephews, kids, they fall all the time, right? It's usually never a big deal. When he fell off of this bar stool, I thought he was dying in front of me. It was the weirdest thing. I went rushing over to him, picked him up, squeezed him so tight. I bet you he couldn't even breathe. I was holding him so tight. And I just started crying unconsolably. And I knew my reaction was way over the top. I knew it was unnecessary, but I couldn't control it. It just came, and I had no idea what was happening in my body. Even my girlfriend was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I have no idea, but I can't live like this anymore." And so I knew something was going on. So maybe I need to seek therapy or something else. I have no idea, but this is not working. So I went, and then there's no such thing as peer support. Didn't know what the hell that was. And I knew I went through my insurance before for a therapist, and it was crap. So I'm like, what can I do? So I just went on Google and tried to find like a trauma therapist, and I found like a local trauma therapist and went to them. And thank God I did. And when I say I found a therapist, I paid cash. I burned the receipt. I didn't go through insurance. I didn't call my company. I didn't tell my chief. I didn't tell my captain. I didn't tell anybody. I was scared of what the hell was going on with me. Is there something wrong physically with me? Can I do my job? Is there something wrong with me mentally? I can't do my job. I was scared shitless. So I didn't tell anybody. And so I made this appointment, and within about 30 minutes, the therapist looks at me and says, "You got PTSD." And I'm like, "PTSD?" I said, "Isn't that like for military? People have seen really bad stuff in wars." I'm like, "I got hit by a car with my son and I'm fine. Like, how can that be?" And she's like, "Well, trauma doesn't work that way just because you're physically fine. And you're a first responder and you've seen a lot of bad shit along the way." And I'm like, "Okay." And so as I walked out of her office that day, for the first time in over 3.5 years, I had an answer to what I was feeling inside my body and at least a direction to go. So I underwent what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it worked fantastic for me. And I tell people, and when I teach, I say if my anxiety was a 9 or a 10 on a 10 scale, within a few sessions, it was down to like a 3. It worked really fast for me. And it's hard to conceptualize, I think, and explain to people because it's almost like voodoo.
Mhm.
But what I conceptualize it as is when you have PTSD, to me, it was like carrying around a big, heavy box. It's You can't put it down. It's weighing on you all the time and it's constantly in your way. And what EMDR did for me was allow me to kind of go through that box, kind of box it up and put it on a shelf. And I can access that box if I need to, but it's not a burden in me to carry it around anymore. And so that by reducing that was allowing me to finally start to heal. So that was kind of the turning point for me to start on my physical health journey. Like I said, I was just going down for years and years. And then finally, once I can unpack that, what I was feeling in my gut, that something changed on that day, that I finally had that answer that allowed me to remove some of that to focus on my physical healing. And so I started leaning in. Like I said, I was always interested in health. I was never as obsessed with it as I am to this day because I felt like I had to be because I I was asked this on a recent webinar too. They always ask me like, why didn't you like give up or like put your hands up? And I'm like, and it hit me because I'm like, I never knew I had a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. And in my opinion, I don't have a choice. I have a
Mhm.
kid that depends on me. I have a relationship that depends on me and my family. Like there's no giving up for me. That's not an option. So I was relentless because I wasn't getting it from the answers from doctors at that time. And then so throughout my journey too, real quick, one of the also pivotal changing points for me physically health was is I went down to UCLA twice, which is renowned and lots of good things um, are studied there. But anyways, I was sent down there because my hip pain was so bad, and their answer to me was they wanted to cut my hip open from anterior to posterior, so front to back, put my femur in traction, grind down my femur head, and then put it back together. And I'd come back in 3 years for a hip replacement. That's the answers I was getting. And as you guys know, that sounds pretty invasive to me. And I didn't want that. And so that was definitely one of those motivating factors for me to not do that. And I'm glad to say that was over a decade ago. And no, I have not needed a hip replacement and I run half marathons. So I'm glad I stuck with what I felt like in my gut because that wasn't the answer for me. So I started on my physical healing journey after I was able to process stress and understand that. I just leaned in. I'm like, stress affected me. How does stress affect me? So I just started getting my hands on everything I could get my hands on, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever. And I started just kind of piecing things together that fit what I was talking about. And like I said, I would go to doctors and say, hey, like I was fine on this day. And oh, and the other thing, so it took me years to get diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis. And that's ultimately what my autoimmune disease that was triggered. So I would hand them the symptoms. I was have a genetic component. I have all these symptoms, and no one would diagnose me for years to come. It was crazy, which I didn't care so much about the diagnosis per se, because a label's not going to really help you, but at least it'll
Mhm.
give you something to in a certain direction too. And I would always say like I think it's related to my accident, and they all said no. And now, and that was back in 2013, 2014, 2015. And studies have finally come out now of PTSD tied to lupus and nurses,
Mhm.
9/11 to firefighters and autoimmune and PTSD in 2021. So the studies, I don't know if I was ahead of my time or whatever, but the studies have finally caught up. So that's the thing with, medicine. It takes forever for anything to catch up.
Mhm.
And that was why I didn't feel like I option. I knew what I felt and I knew what direction I had to go. So I leaned into what I discovered was, immune health, gut health, and how that relates and how that mind body gut connection is pivotal. When I speak, my presentations is called mental health is physical health. Because to me, there's no delineation between the two. They are totally coincided. They're physiologically, chemically, everything is related. So I don't compartmentalize the body because that's my journey. Everything you pull one lever, it pulls something else. So that was my journey. So I leaned into gut health and the mind body gut connection, how stress plays a huge role in all that. physiological stress, it's all the same. It's chemicals going through our body. When where they
Mhm.
land is where what happens too. And then I have the genetic favor of having genetic autoimmune disease in my family, which can trigger that. So just because you have a genetic component of something doesn't mean it's going to get turned on until you introduce an environmental or lifestyle factors or a triggering event. So no different than cancer. We're constantly fighting cancer cells, but it doesn't mean it's going to like sit or take us out, right? As long as our body's in that state, we can fight off things too. So an autoimmune works similarly. It's immune health stuff. So I leaned into that and basically trial and error on a lot of things. So just implementing things. So stress management, sleep, so certain diets. I tried everything under the sun. And then finally, within about 3 or 4 months, what the first things that I noticed was my joint pain. I was able to mitigate 95% of all my joint pain. That was probably one of the first things to go. And then after about 4 to 6 months of implementing what I was doing, it was my skin. I started to reverse my skin. So my entire scalp was completely covered with psoriasis. And now I have a little teeny tiny patch. So I wish there was a cure for autoimmune. I wish that I could say I'm 100% symptom free. No, 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 no. That's not how autoimmune works. But like I said, 95% symptom free. And I've been able to maintain that for over a decade without any medications, too. And that was another thing. Medications, sure, to me, like I worked in Western medicine, we do all here, right? But those drugs and stuff, they weren't the right choice for me. And I've coached numerous clients that have been on every medication that you guys see on your TV on an afternoon show, right? That they'll pop up on the TV. So I've coached all the people who have taken all those medications that are thousands of dollars. And guess what? Over time, they could stop working for you or never work to begin with. So that was just not the choice for me. And I'm glad I've found other ways too. Like I said, there's a time and a place for medications, absolutely, but it wasn't the choice for me at that time. And then, so I'd say on my journey, so 4 to 6 months of my skin reversing, and then after a year, I've been able to maintain that 95% symptom free. So for almost a decade now. And so that's what kind of my personal journey. And then I just basically started opening my mouth and talking about what I was doing to people that I know and got into like gut health supplementation and learning more about that stuff. And that's kind of what helped me. I just opened my mouth and started sharing what I was doing. And I was flabbergasted, especially social media. People started coming, oh, like I'm starting like, holy shit, you suffer with that? And us and Fire and EMS, right? We
Mhm.
were really good at keeping shit under wraps, right? So that's pretty, it was ironic that I started learning more about people. Like I had no idea that you were suffering with that too. And my PTSD journey. And that's kind of just grew into like, wow, this is cool. Like I'm like what I'm doing is helping and we're all
Mhm.
helpers right here. And we like to do that. And it's something that's just been so rewarding to be able to help those that we work with who are helpers too. So like it's just even been more rewarding for me to get into this. So I just started doing this, helping people just on a whim. And then I'm like, well, is this even a thing? Like health coaching? I have no idea. So I same thing, Google it. And I'm like, oh, it's actually a thing. And so I got certified as a health coach, tacked on like gut health nutrition specialist and trauma informed and all that stuff. And it's all stuff that I'm already working on, including my own journey, but I just wanted to formalize it. And then now I've been coaching now for over 5 years, officially with my business and everything. And I love it. And I also work with an inpatient treatment facility in Southern California that I do group health coaching to with clients who are all first responder only and inpatient treatment. So I do weekly coaching calls with them too. So I work very hand in hand with addictions and treatments and health and all that stuff in first responders. And I love it. So and that's my personal thing. And then on duty, I'm also the peer support coordinator, been part of peer support for over 5 years and moving towards establishing our wellness program. Keep your fingers crossed that we'll be able to successfully push through on all that stuff too. But like I say, I love health on duty, off duty, and that's what I do. So that's why I'm here. I'm off duty, but on duty, I'm doing peer support and all those other stuff too. So I love it. And the biggest thing is I just don't want people to make the same mistakes that I did. I made so many mistakes. I didn't talk to anyone, and I made so many things that I'm glad I felt in my gut and stuck with what I wanted to, what I felt was right for me. And I'm glad I stuck through with that too. But at the same time, there was years of suffering and misery that I didn't need to have, but I'm glad I went through it because it made me where I am today. So that's the long and the short of my story.
No, I loved it.
That gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, that was really good. So I do have a few questions though. So when you were going through what you didn't really identify immediately as PTSD, did you try to, because one of the overreaching things we hear a lot when we interview people is typically when first responders, especially nurses as well, but it's more prevalent in first responders, we tend to try to cope in unhealthy ways. Did you adopt any unhealthy habits during that time of you struggling with those thoughts that you weren't exactly sure were there? You just kind of had those feelings that something wasn't right. Did you adopt any unhealthy coping mechanisms?
Not nothing outlying that I've never been a big drinker or gone down that road. I mean,
Hmm.
and that's been part of me just because I've had alcoholism in grandparents and other things too. So I've never been one to adopt like that. I mean, the coping mechanisms, the coping mechanism. It could be food, it could be drugs, it could be
Right.
sex, it could be shopping on Amazon, it could be working
Hmm.
endless overtime. Like there's like coping mechanisms are all bundled together, right? I would say I didn't feel like I did not like have anything. I think I just wanted to find answers, and but when it comes to, I didn't have any unhealthy coping that I could think of off the top of my head that stands out. But when you talk about
Well,
part
you
of
said spiraling.
spiraling, so part and parcel to that is like depression. And so I say, like, throughout my whole journey, like I said, I'm a positive person. I try to lean in gratitude.
Hmm.
But when your body's falling apart, you don't know what's going on, you're scared shitless for your job and everything, like you can get into an extremely dark place. And I say I never felt like I was contemplating suicide, but I got a glimpse into what it would feel like to not be in pain anymore, physical and
Hmm.
emotional pain. I never crossed that line at all, but I got into that place where those thoughts would go around my head of
Hmm.
how can I make this stop?
And I think one of the things that you mentioned, were you about to say something, Michaela? Did I cut you
No,
off?
you go ahead.
One of the things that you mentioned that I really liked is, when you start to realize that stress affects your health. One of the first things I was told going to counseling is my counselor looked at me and said, or my therapist looked at me and said, "You're going to kill yourself stressing as much as you do." And that was a very eye-opening moment because I didn't even think of it as stress, but once I started talking and letting things out, she quickly realized that this guy is wound tight. Uh, and so I really like the way that you kind of handle stress. What were some of the health related things that you started doing instead of just an overview breakdown, like what your workout routine was? Did you start supplements? Like what was it that you did to kind of gain some of that health back to get to that 90%, 95% number that you mentioned?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I first things first, and I did this for myself. And when you have an autoimmune disease, because that's all I can speak for personally, but
Mhm.
it's crazy because you're forced to be constantly in tune with what your body responds to. And so it's almost like a barometer or your own personal health coach telling you what to do and what not to do. And so, like, if you listen to your body and have that self awareness, everyone's different, but there's a lot of key things. So, one of the first things was definitely sleep, right? So, I think in stress, sleep go coincides hand in hand. So, when I started anybody on a client, those are some of the first things we work on. A good telltale way to tell that your stress is way too much is I ask, how's your sleep? And if you tell me shit, guess what? Your stress is probably high. So it's pretty easy answer. And so that's a good place to start because the science is overwhelming. And I just went to this symposium, and long story short, they haven't done many like sleep deprivation studies for like 50 years for a good reason. It's horrible for your health. And so
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest hot topics in fire service and everything. So, and that was me, right? I shit you not, I probably had, on average, 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night for a few years. So, guess what? That's not a good idea. So, that's probably the first thing to work on is concentrating on how to get that sleep, and that's a very hard thing. So, especially when I coach first responders, like, sleep, we almost laugh when we hear that, right? Because
Mhm.
24-hour shifts, 48-hour shifts, 12-hour swing shifts, you name it, it's a hard thing. There's no such thing in perfection when it comes to health, and there's definitely not when it comes to first responder health, right? And it's simply developing those habits and self awareness of trying to maximize what you can. So there are things out there too. And there's been way more tools I've been able to add in my toolbox in the last few years than I did back then, but I'll revert to what I did back then to kind of get me out of where it was. And it was focusing first on that sleep. So, like I said, once I was able to start unpacking that stress of what I felt with the EMDR, that was, I think, that literally just changed everything,
Mm-hmm.
that physiological feeling. I want to, and part of that too. So this is a fun, interesting insight. So when I did EMDR, it was tapping is what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walked through the traumatic call with my son, and I remember like, oh my God, like the most tears I've ever had in my life. It was the weirdest thing. I felt like I just felt like I was vomiting tears like through my eyeballs. It was weird. And so, but part of that walking through is you reframe those memories, right? And so part of that, that memories that was reframed. So the first part of it that was stuck in my brain, because when I talk about stress, especially like the academy and stuff, I classify traumatic stress or these little slides that we have. Those are like mental splinters. They get freaking lodged in there, and they may not develop into anything, or they could fester and start an infection. And until you unpack it, it's going to affect your life. And so what was lodged in my brain was that image of my son lying face down under the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was lodged in my brain of his dead body. Even when I was playing with him, even when he was yelling at me or playing, like doesn't matter. That was the memory that was lodged in my brain for years until I unpacked it on that day. But I didn't know it. You never know it until you start going into those things too. So what EMDR did was reframe that memory, and the tapping is maybe part of it. Is once I go to that place, I feel him physically tapping on my shoulder saying, "Daddy, I'm here. Daddy, I'm here." So by unpacking that thing that was nagging at me, and that's physiological stress, was allowed to take that, me out of that fight or flight state to get me into that rest and digest. And rest and digest is our healing state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the goal is, right? And gut health is part of that, but nervous system is kind of top priority. And then you can work on it because it's a downstream
Mm-hmm.
effect of everything. And so by getting that stress was the first, boulder out of my backpack that I could get to finally start to heal. And so focusing on that sleep and stress management was key. And then when it comes to autoimmune, those things that we know we're supposed to be doing, right? Hydrating. Well, most of us are chronically dehydrating. When you have a joint issues, arthritis, or anything, it's getting that hydration in there. So that's always a good thing. Look at that. I made you
Drink your
thirsty.
water, Kevin.
Yeah. You're messing with my head. You said
Exactly.
hydration. I was like, I'm thirsty.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yep. See, mind, body, right?
Right.
And so like doing those things. And then when it talks about, so gut health is the big part of gut health is feeding our gut. And what does our gut need? Our gut needs fiber. That's what fuels it. So those plants, vegetables, fruits, vegetables, those kinds of things are the core of it. It's not everything. I've done vegan diet. I've tried keto. I've tried all the crazy, weird diets, whatever I call them weird, just because diet's a 4-letter word to me. It's more of fuel. I like that 4-letter word a lot better. It's fueling your body for what are you trying to do? And you don't want to, when you're wanting to be for performance, which we are doing, we're challenging ourselves. We're in a very high stress field. We need to fuel our body. I don't want to go put 87 octane in a jet fighter, right? We want to put good fuel in what it needs to get done. And don't put bad fuel in it. That's how I look at it. So what are we putting in our body? And it's not what we're consuming so much, it's what we're absorbing. So that's a good way to look at it too. So gut health is at the key of that. So eating those things that we know we should be eating, minimizing those things we're not supposed to be eating, is kind of at the crux of a lot of that stuff too. So in exercise, you said about like workout. So that's huge when it comes to anything. And I always tell when I'm coaching people too, you don't need to be a crazy CrossFitter, marathon runner, any of that too. The science is overwhelming. Just simply moving your body, getting that, 20, 30 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week is beneficial for pretty much everybody for our brain health. And there's a real big proponent on pushing on looking at if you want to focus on one thing to promote health, is brain. So focus on things that'll promote your brain health is the best way to take care of your body as a whole. I know forever, I know I was a product of in the 90s of when we're talking about heart health, and we always thought, I still remember, and I tell the story, like my mom, we switched from butter to margarine, right? Because we're like, oh, or dying of heart attack, margarine's the way to go. And now we know that's like the worst thing possible. And so no different than, and I look at this when I frame it, because alcohol is such a big thing in our line of work, right? And the science is overwhelming that there's no healthy dose of alcohol, period. But people would always go back to a little bit, red wine in Italy or whatever, it's good for a heart. No dose is good for your brain, period. It kills your brain. And so and it disrupts your sleep. There's all kinds of things when it comes to that. Again, no such thing as perfection, but if you're wanting to optimize things, you need to take a backseat to other things. And so by doing those things and being cognizant of those things that weren't serving me and putting more into practice of what was, is what I focused on. Anything that had to do with brain health, gut health, that was kind of the focus that I went on to, in a lot of trial and error. In supplements, everyone always likes to talk about supplements, and supplements can be beneficial. Everyone's different. The science is still very mixed out there on a lot of things when it comes to like probiotics and all those kinds of things. I like supplements, but I like supplements at the right time, because what happens is we treat them like a medication or a quick fix. And you think that, oh, I got to take the supplement so I can have the 4 drinks tonight or do something else. It's the healthy habits. It's the consistency over intensity over the long term that's going to yield the results, not just some quick fix. And supplements are a supplement to what you should already be doing, not a quick fix for anything else too. Because no different than you give somebody a medication, a heart medication, right? A doctor after a heart attack, give a heart medication, take this. Cool. Is that gonna prevent the next heart attack, or is going to the gym, eating better, losing weight, doing all those things that you're supposed to do going to be what's going to really move the needle? We know exactly that answer. So to me, like, I don't like to do that because it can distract people from what they should be doing and developing those healthy habits. I've done my health journey with supplements. I've done it without supplements. I don't need supplements. They should be just an addition to what you should already be doing. And again, so it sounds like blanket statements, and there's caveats to all these things, but that's just kind of the broader picture, the broader brushstroke for most people. So those are kind of the
There's
crux
so
of
much.
everything. Yeah. What's that?
There's so much that I want to add. I was trying to keep
Sure.
mental notes like through the whole thing. First of all, I want to say this. Most people do not realize that when they go to a physician and they say, I have anxiety, I have pain, the doctor that you're going to is trained to prescribe you medications. So when you say, I have anxiety, okay, here's Ativan. I have hip pain. Okay, here's oxycodone. But they're not trained to get you to the root of what's wrong. So like all your psychosomatic symptoms that you were having, your flare-ups of psoriasis, they're going to give you creams and steroids for those. They're not going to tell you, have you tried all of these other methods? You're not going to go to a doctor nowadays that says, well, did you try acupuncture first before you came here? They're not going to do that. So I think that is a big thing. People don't realize when they come into the hospital and they have a pill, cabinet full of hundreds of pills they're taking every single day. And they're like, I want to consolidate these. And I'm like, which ones? You've got like 100 of them. What are all these for? And they're like, gout, Lipitor. I mean, it's all these things that have secondary problems. So I think that what you're saying and how that you combated your own symptoms for your life and what worked for you, that can speak to a lot of people, because a lot of people nowadays just go to the doctor. They want a pill that'll fix everything.
It's a powerful story. Did we lose him?
We might have lost him.
Sorry. Touch something.
That's all good. That's all good. Do you feel like that, and obviously you said it, but I want you to elaborate on it a little bit. With the PTSD, how long did it take for you to start mentally feeling better once you started the physical route paired with the therapy and the other things that you were doing? Or did you take some other holistic route that you may not have mentioned?
How long did it take me to feel better after I started my journey? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to the stress and the sleep, it was pretty quick. I'd say once I unpacked all what I needed to, that was really good. And I think that to me, that was one of the biggest missing pieces of it for me. And that's why I emphasize so much on stress and sleep. Like you can eat perfectly, you can do all these workouts. If you're not sleeping and you're stressed, sorry, game over. Like in my opinion, there's nothing, you have to take care of those things or you're going to obliterate your health. So it took me, and like I said, I did a lot of trial and error on everything too. So I had to learn a lot of stuff. So especially autoimmune. And so I coach people with with almost any health journey to some degree. My focus mainly is autoimmune, arthritis, psoriasis, weight management, because that's a very common one. And I only coach what I've done. And so that's a big part of it. And I've tried, let me back up, trying to gather my thoughts here. So I've tried lots of different things when it comes to diet. And so I tried it will way back up. So with autoimmune, you got to be a little more specific on things. So there's more sensitivities, there's more reactions to things. So if you're self-aware more, you're hyper focused on kind of the little things too, because you have to be. So things like wheat, dairy, those things are really potentially something that can react. I can eat everything, but is it work well with me? Not, I can't eat a lot of it. Did I have donuts yesterday? Yes, I did. I did peer support interviews and I always bring donuts to peer support meetings. Will I have one? Okay. Yes. But can I have it all the time? No, because it's not good for my skin. That's just how I work. And so wheat and dairy are really common when it comes to autoimmune. That can not be as serving for some people. And then you can go on different things. There's autoimmune protocol diets, there's FODMAP diets, you name it, there's lots of things. And diets can be beneficial for autoimmune or whatever journey you're on. My caveat is every diet pretty much is meant for short term. That's the biggest thing people don't realize. And that's the biggest problem with it, is because once you go off of it, what do? You go full tilt the other direction. So you're going off on this other way, and you just erase pretty much what you did. And the problem is you almost go worse. And that's one of the caveats of the big, push for we talk about weight management real quick, right? The whole rise in GLP-1 medications and all that stuff. It's like, oh, great, you lost weight. And people, and I hate this, and I always tell my clients, I said, throw your scale in the trash, because weight doesn't mean anything. I said, or if you want, go ahead and hold one of your kids and step on the scale. Tell me what you ate. Well, that doesn't make sense. Exactly. If you don't know what you're made out of, then weight doesn't matter to you. You don't know what's bone, you don't know what's water, you don't know what's muscle. And the problem when you're doing any weight journey is if you do it too fast, is you're going to lose muscle. Your muscle is your key to your metabolism and your longevity and your health. You do not want to lose it. And so that's one of the biggest problems, in that comes back to those habits and developing those healthy habits of doing it effectively over time. Sorry, I can talk all day and I'm going on tangents probably now. But so when it comes to my healing journey, implementing these things, again, I was just leaning into everything that I could get my hands on. And I started feeling better probably within just a month or two of knowing I was going in the right direction, and then just constant trial error. And then I would get a couple bad nights of sleep and went, oh my God, why am I getting worse? You're thinking you're going in a different direction. And that's something that I think everyone can relate to. Sometimes you're implementing new things and then you're getting worse or something. Healing's not linear. Healing is totally up and down. And just look at it over kind of the long haul. No different than weight loss. Don't ever weigh yourself every day. I always tell people, especially firefighters, know this exactly, right? So how much does a gallon of water weigh? 8 pounds. And guess how much water you should be drinking daily for most people? About a gallon. So how much can your weight vary in one day? You're right, 8 pounds. So don't get hung up so much on scale, because that could be just hydration and everything else. So it's more about that long-term trajectory. And so I learned right away, healing is not linear at all, constantly up and down. And I have so many pictures of my skin. I've took progress photos forever. And so put it this way, I just took some just a few weeks ago, and my skin's even better than it was. Like I told you, I've been dealing with this for 10 years. So I'm still finally tweaking things. I've moved things from my diet and done other stuff. And so I'm still healing. So it takes a while, but when I coach clients, I work with clients for about 16 weeks. And that's a good jumping off point for most people to start to notice healing too. But it's a long-term thing. And what I don't like when it comes to healing is thinking that you work with somebody for 30 days or a few months and that's it, you're done. No, my goal is to give somebody tools so that they can move on and not need me ever again. That's my goal when I work with clients. And giving them tools to help them, their family around them too, that they can implement for long-term solutions, not just quick fixes. I hate quick fixes. We are inundated with them, especially in first responder world. next greatest supplement, the next greatest thing, the next greatest diet. Like just go into any station and just ask somebody, hey, what diets have you tried? And they'll name all the top ones, or what supplements did you take? And then a big hot topic now, right, is like testosterone replacement, those kinds of things. GLP-1s, those
Mhm.
go hand in hand right now, right? Through everything too. Everybody wants this quick fix for things, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, in my opinion. So, but everyone's got to look out for themselves. And again, you mentioned, Kevin, like root causes, right? And so a very common one. So testosterone replacement, people are really big on that right now. It's like my testosterone's low. I went to the doctor. I get testosterone replacement. Cool. Why is your testosterone low? Do you know why? It's because you're stressed. You're not sleeping. You're not eating right. You're not doing those things that you're supposed to do. That's why your testosterone's low. Why don't you work on that
Mhm.
first before you have something that you got to take for the rest of your life? Like
But
that's
all those social media guys love to promote that.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying I'll never not do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'd much rather focus on that. I just did my own lab tests too. Oh, so I could go off on this all day. So if I'm going on too many tangents, you stop me. But anyways, like when we talked about kind of the answers or lack of answers that we get sometimes in medical treatment that we have. I just drew my labs. I've been doing like a fat loss journey for like the last year. I've been just wanting to do it. I try to push myself. So I drew my labs, and I have a family history of higher cholesterol. And so I got them checked out, and I've been on this journey for like 9 months, like a focused protein, tracking my food, doing all this stuff as I like it. I've been wanting to push myself. So that's what I did. And so I just want to check and see where I'm at. And so I draw my labs, and I get a phone call from it's a nurse practitioner, and she's like, "Oh, go through your labs, blah, blah, blah. And I'm concerned your cholesterol's a little high." I'm like, okay. And looked at it, and I'm like, oh, yeah. But I'm like, so my LDL's higher. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, but my HDL is like 20 points higher. My triglycerides are lower. My testosterone's 80 points higher. My A1C is down 0.2%. My blood sugar's down 20 points. But you're hung up on my LDL. And so I'm like, and she wouldn't let it go. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
I'm like, all right. And she said, well, let's just do a CT scan of your heart and make sure there's no calcium, blah, 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 because then we can dismiss that. But she wanted to push medications on me. And when I went to radiology, did the CT scan, the radiology tech's like, "Oh, you got any heart issues going on?" I'm like, "No, just higher cholesterol. They just want to make sure it's all good." And she's like, "Well, you can take medications and it'll help with that too." And I'm like, "Oh," I said that, "No, I'm not going to be doing that." And she's like, "Well, you really should." And I almost lost it, but I just said, "Got it." And I did my obviously zero calcium score. That's it. There's no reason. And that's just another one of those things that us in EMS nursing know this, right? Do we treat the patient or do we treat the monitor?
Patient
We treat the
The
patient,
patient.
right?
every time.
Okay. A lot of people in the medical community, I don't think see that. And so that's something I've prided myself on is treat the patient, not the monitor. So let's do with that. And at the end of the day, I think you've mentioned this too before, Kevin, is like med compliance, right? Is actually taking those medications too. Can the doctor shove the medication down the patient's throat? No, we have to, the patient's the one who is in control anyways. So why don't we work with the patient? That's what health coaching does, is to do what fits in their life and what they're going to do for the long term.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my approach. And that's what I found out in my whole journey was because I tried radical things or radical supplements, in my opinion, just like all these things. And oh, maybe this is going to work. Maybe this diet's going to go. And and that's not what I found that worked for me. And that's what I said, like I trial and error so many things. And what I find what works, and that's what's going to work at the end of the day, is what they're going to do and what they're going to stick to. Cause that's exactly what I did. I've tried vegan, I've tried keto, I've tried paleo, I've tried all these things. And at the end of the day, it was that none of those specific things work for me. And anyone who's ever tried a lot of those things, after 4 or 6 months, they're going to be done with it anyways, and maybe they're going to revert. So I'm now 45 years old. I'll be 45 next month. Um, I am like at my lowest body fat percentage naturally. I am 95% symptom free from autoimmune. I manage sleep pretty well at night. I have 3 kids. I do all these things and I feel great. So like, and in what I'm doing is what works for me. And I'm not saying it works for everybody, but when I coaching people, I help work with them to find what works for them. And to me, that's the key for longevity and so and health, especially in this line of work. So when I coach first
Mhm.
responders, is that I say we're the epitome of how to destroy your health, period. For lots of reasons. Uh, I'll mention it too. So we're constantly stressed to some degree, right? Just because we have to be, and we're in that fight or flight state. Are we caffeinated? Do we have nicotine on board? Do we have lack of sleep? Do we have marital issues sometimes? Do we have?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. We see trauma every day, more or less. Like so, we
Mhm.
are the poster child for how to destroy your mental and physical health. So it's imperative upon us, I think, to have tools and learn from those other mistakes and implement things so we don't go down that road and bring our family down with us.
So
Absolutely right.
that's crazy. That's so good. So, Egan, as we're closing it out, this
Mhm.
is going to be our last kind of thing we talk about. If you were going to say to the burnout, tired, anxious, even sick first responder that has PTSD out the wazoo, what is your one thing that they need to start doing today to put them on a journey for holistic healing?
Somebody who's struggling with post traumatic stress or anything is the hardest thing you'll ever do if you've never done it before is ask for help. So asking for help is the hardest part of it all. That's it, in my opinion. And even in my peer support capacity, my journey, my experience with all this, I still had that problem of asking for help too. And I just I had a really critical call about was beginning of or the end of last year, and I in charge of peer support. I have gone through my own journey, and the call was that call when if somebody asked me, right, what's the worst call you ever had? That was it. 20 plus years into my career. And I I did the good thing that I did was I knew it. I recognized what was going on. I told my wife about it. I said, "Hey, I'm not in the right place." And I gave myself a timeline. If I'm not feeling good in a few weeks, I'm going to seek help. And and then so a few weeks went by, I feel fine. And then I took a look in the mirror. I'm like, "What in the hell am I doing? Like what am I scared of asking for help? Even though I've been in this capacity, I know what the effects are." I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like, I should be the first one to go, "Oh, sign me up. I need to go." I was still in the back of
Mhm.
my head, like, nah, I think I'm good. And I'm like, no, stupid. And the best thing I ever did, I went back, I made an appointment. I already knew what EMDR entailed. I said, I want to do EMDR. Walked through it, unpacked what I needed to, and it was eye opening. I could talk about that one a whole nother time, but I've been sharing that a lot with my coworkers to explain to them how EMDR helped me, very similar to my first experience. And I'm so glad I did it. But again, the hardest part, I think, is asking for the help because once you are in that
Mhm.
process, I think your mind is open to it, and then things will start coming. Resources like this, resources online. If you have a peer support team, there's lots of things that are out there to help, but they're not going to force you into it. You need to ask for help.
So tell us all the places that we can find you. Give us the shameless plug. I love a good shameless plug.
Sure. So my website is firstwellnesshealth.com. And then I'm on all the social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all those too. And I have a couple Facebook groups that are developing too. I have a first responders mind body wellness
Oh,
Facebook group that's just kind of starting. And then I'm also so After Action is also a company that I contract with too for that inpatient treatment facility too that I do coaching with them as well too. So but firstwellnesshealth.com, you can find all that information too.
that is awesome.
Mhm.
Well, Egan, thank you for joining us. That was a great conversation. I love your story. There's going to be 100 great clips from this that I can share in all the places. And if you guys
Perfect.
are looking for a silent war, then you can find us in all the same places: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can go check out our website, silentwarwithin.com. I'm working on getting a newsletter developed to get out there. Hopefully by the time this episode airs, that will be something that is sent out weekly with links to our guests. That, that couple weeks, it'll probably be a bi-weekly thing to start off to see how it goes. But we're working on things, and we're trying to get, hopefully this episode and the episode just before it will be a video version as we continue to work with Spotify and Apple to get videos. So it's a pretty simple process. I just didn't know what I was doing
Yeah,
to start
I hear
with.
you.
So yeah. So this was a new thing for me in August that we started, and I didn't know anything about it. So I've learned on the fly, getting better every time. With Michaela on board is super helpful. Kim was super helpful while she was here. Kim is still with us. She's not gone from the team. She's just on a extended absence from us. So, but we'll be happy to have her back. Happy to have her join Michaela as our co-host. And of course, go look for us, go listen to us. We stream on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, as well as Podbean. We're getting streamed around the world there. Podbean is one that distributes to other agencies internationally. So we've been streamed in a few countries now, which is pretty exciting. So keep listening to us, keep searching for us, keep watching our stuff. And as always, be safe, take care of your mind, and we'll talk soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.